أحسن جارديان في العالم، عمر العالم شاف شو واحد بحال.
علاش كبرات ولي بحال؟
طلعت لي الخدمة في الراس.
ولا وقعت شي حاجة راه ما خاصناش نمشيو فيها بجوج.
ويا شي راه خوك جا ما غتمشي تشوفو.
كلها في شي شكل.
بحال الدار عقله، ما بقاش تعرف بحالك درتي معاه الزكير بحال هكا.
علاش ما تجيش معايا انت عند النصير؟
Nice to meet you,
Thank you.
Nabil.
Nice meeting you.
I saw Horses of God yesterday. It's so incredibly cinematic that I wish I had the opportunity to see it in the movie theater first time. You know.
And you didn't?
I didn't. I couldn't because we just put this our conversation all came together overnight. So my first opportunity had to be on a unfortunately on a much smaller screen.
So you should come back at Film Forum tonight.
I know I should, right? Well, the idea is that we'll post this next week. Now, I'm just going to ask, hold this close like that, and then just hold it. Try not to shake it too much because this mic is not the greatest.
It's always the same when I don't have my whiskey early in the morning.
Oh, very good.
I'm shaking.
Okay, very good. I understand. You get the tremors.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I'll see what I can do. Maybe Eric will put something special in our bottles here. Anyway, but regardless, I did see it, and I understood Jonathan Demme's enthusiasm. So did he see it? What had happened there? How did that develop, that relationship? Did he see it at Cannes, or what happened there?
No, Jonathan saw Horses of God first at Marrakesh Film Festival. Was in last year, and he invited me few months afterward at the Jacob Burns Film Center, which you probably know is an independent organization based near New York in Pleasantville, to screen my film for an Arab series.
Oh, very good. And you were there yesterday, right?
I was there again yesterday. Since then, I became a friend of the Jacob Burns. Very great people. And since that time, I mean, Jonathan never stopped being a supporter of the film. He helped us very much for the Oscar campaign and the Golden Globe campaign too. And I should say that without Jonathan, we would certainly not be here today.
It's an incredible little bit of serendipity. Do you want to tell say a little bit about what the story is about? It's based on actual events, of course, that took place in the city of Casablanca.
Yeah, it's based on sadly real events that happened on May 16, 2003 in Morocco, the suicide bombings of Casablanca. And it tells the story of 5 young boys. They're 10 years old at the beginning of the film, who are going to become the suicide bombers of this story. And it tells how those 10 years old boy could have turned into suicide bombers. That was the story of their life.
That was my next question, actually, is why you chose to start your story in their childhood as opposed to, say, while they're initially being inoculated or they're trained. You know what I mean? Like some other filmmaker might have started the film, or it would have been an alternative to start the story when they are first joining, this brotherhood. But
because I was not interested by the violence itself. For me, violence is not a show, as it is screened most of the time in movies that speaks about this topic. For me, violence doesn't come from nowhere. It has a source. So I was more interested by the genesis of this violence, where it comes from where it grows up, for which reasons, than the violence itself.
Where did you grow up?
In the suburb of Paris, in a very violent city called Sarcelles.
It was violent?
It was very violent. It was a kind of ghetto, that here in the suburb of the big cities too.
So it wasn't one of the fancy arrondissements?
No, absolutely
quite the
not.
opposite.
It was not in the center of Paris itself. It was in the margin, like City Movement, the shanty town that I'm talking about in the film. And I think it's probably one of the main reasons why I felt so comfortable when I arrived there with those boys, when I did this work on the field, on the ground with them, why I felt this feeling that they have of being abandoned somehow.
Abandoned by the society on a certain level, by the same society that kind of takes care of people who have more money, and
they're abandoned by the state. They're abandoned because the state accepts that some 12 years old boy don't go to school anymore, because there is no infrastructure that are connecting them from the place where they live to the rest of the society, the center of the city. They're abandoned because they have no opportunity of job, employment, social care, and also because the family structure exploded. There no more father authority, no more love, and I think that a child that grows up without love doesn't grow up like a child that grew up with love.
Sure, it's almost inevitable. It was almost like fate that the imam would find Yashin.
Yashin it's named after a famous Russian goalkeeper. You know the soccer.
Yes. He had
Lev Yashin,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why he shows this picture all the time in the film, because it's his idol.
Right. Have I heard of Yashin? No. Not only are most Americans, I'm generalizing, ignorant and about football, what you call football, but I'm especially ignorant about it. I guess I grew up with Pele was the international superstar, and then since then it's kind of dwindled down. I'm sorry to say, but
no, I understand.
Yeah, but it was like I was trying to say earlier, and it was almost fate that the imam and Yashin would meet, because the imam is looking for. I mean, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, as we say. There are so many of these young, vulnerable men that are growing up that don't know love, that don't know what it means to truly belong and have that strong infrastructure and have someone strong at the center of it. There was mental illness in his family too, right? Yashin's family.
There is, there is his brother, autistic brother, that decided to live in its own world. There's the father that is absent, of course. Yes, there are many like that. And that's why, because there are not millions of suicide bombers in the world, that's why with Jamel Belmahi, the scriptwriter, we decided to build the war story on the relationship between the two brothers. Because for me, that's one of the key aspects of the film. This relationship, that's the reason why Yashin at the end decided to go and kill himself, and that's why the other one follows him, and this competition between the two brothers. And this relationship actually evolves since the very beginning of the film, where there's a kind of admiration from Yashin towards Hamid.
Sure, his older brother. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where the human aspect comes in, and that's where the film decided to focus.
Yeah. It was definitely a goal of yours to humanize, to give some explanation anyway, to how someone could end up making the decision to take such a drastic action.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, by the end of it, you do understand. And then he loses the woman of his romantic focus as well, and it seemed like almost nothing left to live for. Having said all that, there is for the majority of the film, though, there is a playfulness that you have in your style of. It's not the film is not a drag. It's such an intense topic. It's such a dramatic and intense topic, but you are still approaching it with a certain amount of playfulness. The kids are truly friends when they're together. They laugh, and there's a camaraderie and a dynamic that's really really lovely.
Well, I'm glad if you could feel that.
Well, it is. These guys have grew up together, and they're still friends into their 20s and 30s. And when you were growing up as outside of Paris, as you said, when did the interest in filmmaking come about, and did you have opportunity to see much outside, maybe of television, I guess?
Yeah, and there was a place in this small city called Sarcelles. There was a place called the Forum des Arts. It was a place where I could have seen theater, music, concert, films. the first Eisenstein movies, Charlie Chaplin, and so on.
Mm-hmm. And you attended these old classics?
I did.
Wow.
It was a kind of an island, you know.
An oasis.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I would not be here today. I would not be a filmmaker today without this little island in the middle of this big shit, you know.
Yeah. I think only in Paris would you have, even in a potentially neglected area, which it sounds like perhaps that you grew up in this very neglected spot. I may be wrong. I don't know, but it only in and around Paris would you still have an arts movie theater. The love of cinema is so powerful in Paris, whereas here you just wouldn't have that.
Yeah, and I think that's a big mistake, because we were talking about the feeling of being abandoned. The best way to reconnect people is of course education, that's for sure, but culture plays a wonderful part. Having the feeling that you're in the same boat with the other citizens, that there are no one speed or a second speed development in your society is through arts and culture. And when you come to say to those young boys that violence is not and should not be a way of expression, you didn't do the job, because then you have to offer them some other ways of expression. And what could be those ways of expression? Sports, of course. We are seeing in the film how soccer can be one of the possible social ascensions for them. But art, culture is also a very big window to the world, to the big world, because then you can come on a stage and shout your rage, or you can sing or whatever, and that's very important. And most of the countries, they do the same mistake. They park people outside the big cities. They say, yeah, we're going to try to design good buildings and so on, the big architects and so on, but they forgot about the link, the social link.
Yeah, very true. Like I say, especially in the bigger American cities, that's definitely the case. Have you had an opportunity to travel around the States? Obviously, you've been to New York and probably...
I've been, and it's all the same problem. I mean, this is what I call ghettos. And this city movement is a ghetto too. You can have different forms of ghetto. You don't need to have a shanty town to call it a ghetto. You can have buildings and it's still a ghetto. And I still don't understand that, you see. Why? I mean, it's so easy. It doesn't cost so much money. We're talking about social care. It's huge amount of money, and of course it's important. But this...
And they were actually channeling so many of the young people that grew up in them to the prisons, which is an enormous expense and on the state as well. And that could be avoided if people had... Because I think, as you said, that there's an opportunity for connectivity when you have the arts available to you. But also over time, as you immerse yourself in it, as you seem to have had the opportunity by going back and to your church, as that you, just over time, you have this catharsis as you begin to have the opportunity to absorb the art, in this case, film. But it takes sometimes many hours of that to start to get it, where you're immersed in it, and then you change as a result. It's a thing which is transcendent. Just a thing that's obviously played a part in your growth,
in my background, and also in my present, because with Mahib bin, the script, the author of the book, because Horses of God is based after a novel called The Stars of Sidi Moumen.
I'm sorry, of which one?
The Stars of Sidi Moumen. Sidi Moumen is the area on the shantytown where the suicide bombers left from. And we decided with Mahi, to build a cultural center there recently, last year, and to bring to those young people some culture and some arts. And this cultural center opened 1 month ago.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, terrific. That's beautiful. You chose to take this project on, which takes place in Morocco.
Oh, I do live in Casablanca since 15 years.
Oh, you do? Okay, so you were just born and raised in...
I moved to Morocco in 1999.
I see. What was the reason for that?
Well,
motivation?
most of my film were shot in Morocco. I'm very excited and intrigued by Moroccan society, probably much more than I am with French society.
Yeah. So you've been there ever since. Did you start a family there, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's nice. Fortunately, as the trajectory has worked out, you have you're opening the film at the Film Forum in New York City for 2 weeks. That's a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah, it is. It is. Minimum 2 weeks. I hope it's going to be more.
Well, yeah, well
We'll
said.
see.
We'll see. We'll try. I'll put the show up sometime before your second week begins, because I think
great.
we're losing I can't work quite so fast as to get it up today, but I can get it up in time for that second week, certainly. Hopefully second of several, as you said. Yeah, I guess people can't expect the cast to be there tonight, unfortunately. That would be require probably a larger budget.
Yes, and they traveled a lot with the film.
They did.
They're very happy, and now you know what? They became actors because they
Is that right?
Yeah, they did some other movies after Horses of God.
So they were all of the. Were there like 5 young?
Yeah.
Are you talking about But you're talking about the more mature versions of the actors, not the children, right?
No. I'm talking of the mature. Yeah.
Yeah. And none of them had acting experience before, or did it?
Never.
None of
them. It was the first appearance on screen.
That is impressive. How did you work with them then?
They're boys from the shanty town, you know. They were born there and they grew up there, and some of them still live there today. So, I mean, I knew them just by chance when I was working on the ground about the topic, trying to feed myself what could be the life there, meeting people, listening to them a lot. And then we went into a casting process, and they came up to me, and we worked on the basis of improvisation a lot. We talked about the characters. We didn't rehearse the script itself because I don't like it, usually with unprofessional actors. And they gave me the part of truth. They gave me the part of real life, of real experience of what could be the life in a shanty town. Some of them knew the suicide bombers from far away. So it was really special experience for me, I should say.
Do you have any interest in shooting like something here in the States, or does that interest you?
Well, I could be interested in shooting anywhere. It depends on the script.
It's too abstract a question.
Yeah, I mean, if I received since few months few proposals of scripts, no one really grabbed me until now, I should say.
Well, the movie, once it opens and the reviews come out, and I think they'll probably be pretty positive, is my guess. I think people will really, of course, but I think people will be very accepting and encouraging with the film. I'm really grateful for the opportunity of seeing it, and for it to be a story that I'm familiar with from other films I've seen, but have taken no predictable turns at all. Part of the beauty of it was I felt like I had an invested interest in these guys because I saw them grow up in a way, and through the story, it was very honest. I wish you very much luck with the film, and I hope in time we get to sit down again and talk again. It was really nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Yeah.